Hi, I'm Mark Safe, and in this lesson we'll look at the opportunities that come with a chip stack of between 25 and 40 big blinds. While a stack of this size may not seem very large, it is big enough to offer players more room to maneuver pre-flop. But most importantly, a stack of this size allows players to apply additional pre-flop pressure on their opponents by 3-betting or even moving all in. Now, we don't have a lot of chips, but I'm going to show you the power that a stack like this provides. The first thing you'll notice with this type of stack is that you can now make a standard pre-flop raise and still afford to fold your hand should you run into unexpected resistance. But while this additional breathing room is certainly nice to have, it's not the biggest benefit that a stack of this size offers. No, that honor goes to the 4-bet. For those of you unfamiliar with this term, it's very easy. You make a standard pre-flop raise and an opponent re-raises your bet. That's called a 3-bet. Now, instead of folding your hand, you re-raise all in. That's the 4-bet. The key to successfully using this technique is making sure that you are the one initiating the aggression. By that I mean you want to be the one doing the betting rather than the guy who has to make a call for all his chips. Let's take a look at an example. In this hand, you're sitting in early middle position with pocket jacks when the action folds to you. You make a standard 3x raise, and the action folds to the cutoff, who then re-raises to 8 to 9 times the big blind. Since you're out of position, you should seriously consider 4-betting or possibly moving all in so as to avoid playing this difficult type of hand out of position. Against a tight opponent, though, you might want to flat call and check the flop regardless of what it brings. The problem is, more often than not, you'll see at least one overcard to your jacks on the flop, thus leaving you with a very tough decision. But again, against a tight opponent that bets out on this flop that's brought an overcard, give them credit for a hand that beats yours, get away from your hand, and still you'll have chips to work with. Like the all-in moves we discussed with smaller stacks, this play allows you to apply maximum pressure to your opponent when you think you are likely to be holding the best hand. Of course, you shouldn't automatically 4-bet with a stack of this size just because you can. As with any other hand, you need to consider your opponent and think about how often they may fold to your bet and how often you are likely to win when they don't fold. Another key to remember with a stack of this size is that you don't want to be the 3-better unless you're willing to call an all-in re-raise with your hand. Let's say a loose opponent who has you covered makes a standard 3x raise from middle position and you look down to find pocket 9s. This is a pretty good hand and one you want to see a flop with. But is it a re-raising hand? Probably not, and here's why. Let's say you do decide to re-raise to 10 times the big blind with your 9s and your opponent makes a 4-bet that would force you to call for the rest of your chips. Do you really like your 9s enough that you're willing to go to war with them before the flop? By 3-betting your opponent with your chip stack, you put yourself in a tough spot that you could have avoided by simply calling. The key with a stack between 25 and 40 big blinds is to remain flexible in your decision making. Your stack is worth protecting, and that means adjusting your play based on the action at the table. Again, let's say you raised pre-flop with the intention of 4-betting if you got re-raised by a single opponent. But what if you get re-raised and someone else calls that bet before the action gets back to you? Do you really want to risk all your chips against 2 opponents who have both shown strength? In this situation, you have to realize that you are likely behind at least one of your opponents, which means the best course of action may be to give up your hand and look for a better spot. Remember, a stack of between 25 and 40 big blinds is often around the average, which means there isn't much reason to take unnecessary gambles. This means you should have a plan for your hand before you act. If you're going to raise, you should be prepared to re-raise all in or fold, depending on the action that follows.